Hello, I am so bored because I have not had one customer today at work, and therefore I am going to be talking in an Australian accent about my favourite show, Pretty Little Liars. The finale, Cece reveal, the fact that it wasn't Ren as Charles or a big A on Pretty Little Liars. So, mates, this is me talking in an Australian accent because I am bored and have nothing better to do, too tired to sing or whatever, and I need practice on my Australian accent because it's fun to do. It makes me sound more sophisticated, and I just like the way it sounds. Alright, let's go. So, Season 6, Episode 10 of Pretty Little Liars, we have come to the prom, the real prom of the Pretty Little Liar girls. They have figured out several things about A. A is Charles De Laurentiis, Jason and Allison's long-lost brother. Not really long-lost. Their father had put him into Radley as a child. At one point we hear that Charles is 7 years older than the girls. Then at another point we heard that he was 11 when Allison was 1 year old. He put her into the bathtub as a baby and tried to drown her / burn her in the scalding water. So they sent him to Radley, but she was a year old, he was 11. So in that story, Charles was 10 years older than the girls, but previously we had heard he was 7 years older than the girls, so not sure which is the real story, because that right there was plot hole number 1, started early on in season 6, getting the misinformation here. Then later we find out that Charles has a grave at his great-grandmother's house. He got out of Radley at 16. He committed suicide and there, overdosed on his medication, which wasn't true, obviously, because, as Mona said and several fans pointed out beforehand, before they even revealed it in the show, if you overdose on certain medications, it will shut down your organs and your organs will be no good. And he was an organ donor. He donated organs in his file. And the fans pointed out that he couldn't have done that if he had overdosed, because his organs would be of no use to a recipient, to a donor. And Mona said so in the show, obviously, because she's a genius. So, after we find out that Charles was supposedly committed suicide, he had a grave, and later we find out actually Charles is not dead, but still alive. He was in Radley from the age of 6 or 10. No, 6 or 11. I don't know which one is the truth. He's 7 years older than the girls, and then later he's 10 years older than the girls. So, either way, he went to Radley when Allison was 1 year old, which is ridiculous that he hates her, or so I thought at first that he hated her, and it's kind of ridiculous that you would hate someone that was a baby when you left her. But jealousy and psychotic behavior would excuse that and give it a good motive. So later, anyway, he goes into Radley at a young age, either 6 or 11. Don't know. We have no clear answer of that yet, or probably never will. And he stayed there until the age of 16, and then he faked his suicide, or his mother did later on, or during that time. Then he actually really escaped Radley the night Allison went missing for the last time. The last time he escaped Radley for good was the night Allison went missing, Labor Day 2009 in Rosewood. Yes. So, Charles has been out of Bradley for the remainder since that night. Possibly beforehand, well, Leslie's story was that Charles De Laurentiis, remember that name, and that Leslie said Charles De Laurentiis escaped Bradley the night Labor Day. So, the audience is watching thinking Charles escaped Bradley, came and hit Allison on the head, possibly enlisted Mona's help to become A and start the A team. And he was the big A, the leader of the A team. So, and this is where Marlene just really gets on my nerves. We see the girls at prom, and Allison is trying to find Charles because she wants to see her brother, which is kind of ridiculous because anyway, Allison feels sorry for Charles because it's her brother and she feels sorry for him, and she thinks that he just wants to see his family again instead of so he kidnapped the girls and put them in a dollhouse and put Allison in jail, faked Mona's death and framed Allison for it, and put the rest of the girls in the dollhouse while Allie was left to rot in prison. Mona was stuck in a dollhouse pretending to be Allison. The girls were tortured for over a month in the dollhouse. They set up a fake prom. Charles made them, and he was prom king. They made Charles prom king. He wanted Allison to be prom queen, so he had his little fake prom, and he wanted to be prom queen. He dressed as a guy. He was in a tuxedo. He had no boobs on his chest whatsoever. He treated them like dolls, tortured them, and so after Allison helps them escape, she rescues the girls, which is amazing of Allison. I love the girl, but Allison, honey, if your brother just wanted to see you and your family again, he could have came up and knocked on the door, regardless what reaction there might be. There was absolutely no need for any sibling to do all those things to you and your friends, your mates, and Mona. I could see the motive behind, if you really loved your sister or was obsessed with her psychotically, putting Mona in there, or faking her death, making her family miserable, torturing Mona, but not the girls. And certainly not Allison, and certainly not Jason, and certainly not the father. Possibly the father, because he's the one that put Charles into Bradley to begin with. However, framing Allison for Mona's death and putting her in jail is not explained by wanting to see your family, even if you are psychotically obsessed. Either way, this is not a safe person for you to be looking for, and Allison was looking for Charles. Marlene had said beforehand, you will feel sorry for Charles, you will be sympathetic to Charles once you find out why Charles is doing this. Sorry, Marlene, that has not happened yet. I don't know if you have something planned in the future, but all the explanation we got, I still do not feel sorry for this character. So, at the prom, Allison is looking for her brother. She eventually finds him. He drags her to a abandoned hallway or something rather, and she sees Charles' face and is shocked and surprised, and the episode goes off. Then we go to the finale, and the girls are looking for Allison. They can't find her. They find Mona in the hallways, stalking about in a mask and a red hood, which is absolutely adorable. And Mona is a genius, and I love her. But she tells them she has been tracking Allison and Charles via their text messaging to each other. And she hacks into Charles' personal cell phone tower. That Charles apparently has his own personal cell phone tower. So she hacks into that and finds out his location. And it's the Karasimi group, which is just a horrible addition to the whole show, in my opinion. I would have rather not been in that. I would have rather not the Karasimi group been a part of anything to do with the show whatsoever. They could have just left it out completely, and it would have been a lot better. Charles headquarters could have been in the dollhouse. They could have went back in the dollhouse in the finale. They could have went to Radley in the finale. They did, but however, it would have been a lot more interesting had they started at the prom, went to the dollhouse, ended up in Radley at the end somehow, or something like that. The Karasimi group, that whole room, they found a room. It was high tech. It was very, very not PLL like. We heard in a deleted scene that Charles actually liked antiques from his mother Jessica, talking to Allison, showing her pictures. It was a deleted scene, but Charles did like antiques and old memorabilia from old early date. He had an old record player in his dollhouse room. It's just a bunch of old antiques things. So, and that was in the that was not a deleted scene. This was actually in the show. He liked old things. He had an old projector in the soul room, an old record player, an old popcorn maker, several old things, antiques, and so the whole Karasimi high-tech room with the holograph, whatever you call it, this thing on the wall, or in the middle of the air, Hannah tried to put her hand through it. It was very, very not a part of the character that we got information on, and very much not a part of the show. The Pretty Liars has had a black and white episode, noir episode, everything old-fashioned, pretty much everything to do with old movies, old songs, everything antique, very traditional, classic things, classic makeup, classic character, classic dialogue. Everything in the show is very old school, classic. And that's what most people like about the show, even if they don't realize it. It's very much a piece of artwork. The whole entire series, every episode, it's all artwork because it's so, at its core, it's very traditional, basic artistry on screen, and that's what I love about the show. But in the finale, we get the Karasimi group in season 6 altogether. The whole Sarah Harvey as a character on the show having any relevance is just disappointing. Sarah could have not been on the show at all, and everything would have been a lot better. I'm sorry to the actress, but she's not even a good actress. Had they brought in a good actress, would she have made Sarah Harvey interesting? I seriously doubt it. Either way, Sarah could have just jumped over, went home, never talked to the girls ever again, and I would have been completely happy. Or if the girl in the dollhouse with blonde hair was Bethany, that would have been a lot more relevant and interesting. Even though we had never seen Bethany either, she had some things to do with the storyline, to do with the girls. She knew Allison's mother. Her dad had an affair with Allison's mother. Bethany was the girl in the grave, obviously. So my thinking was that Sarah Harvey was the one in the grave and Bethany was still alive. It would have been a lot more interesting. Sarah's not part of the Rosewood world whatsoever. She had no previous connection to any character. Everything about her is just irrelevant. They tried to make her relevant in her dating Emily. It was very disturbing. Sarah's a freak. She's very feral, like a feral cat. As her character asked Emily, she mentioned the news called her a feral cat. She asked Emily if she was, and Emily told her she was more like a lost puppy. No, lost puppies are cute. Sarah is very much a feral cat. She's very pathetic and weak. she's not a character that you would feel sympathy for or like in any way. I don't understand why she was even a part of the show at all. Her character being the person that went missing, I don't understand that part either. I don't think they should have done anything actually going back to the first mention of Sarah back in season 3. No, season 4, actually. They shouldn't have even mentioned her. If she were not going to be the body in Allison's grave, she should have just not been mentioned at all. And anyway, Sarah's there in the finale. She takes the girls to the Karasimi group, gets in this high-tech room. The girls go in there, Sarah won't go in. I'm obviously like, if you hadn't noticed, Sarah didn't come in there with you guys. She's a bad guy. She's obviously not on your side if she's not coming in there with you. They are all oblivious to Sarah's involvement in the A-Team. Even Mona, Spencer, they don't seem to... It doesn't seem to dawn on them that Sarah is working for A. When she doesn't come in the room with them, they get locked in there. And at this point, in the real Pretty Liars, the real characters, the actual usual character behavior, at this point, Mona at least, even Spencer even, should have noticed that something was amiss with Sarah not going in the room. She would not come in the room, and they got locked in there. Mona, of course, should have said something to the effect of, guys, Sarah is on the bad side, why else was she and not came in this room? Mona's a genius. She would have realized that at that moment. Of course, Marlene wrote this episode. She should have known her characters better than this. I don't know what her problem was in writing this episode. She did not give the characters lines that suited them. She did not give explanations that suited the entire series. It was as though she had a ghostwriter that had never seen the show a day in their life. Nothing about this episode matched with almost any other episode in the entire series. Season 6 altogether was pretty messed up. Everything about season 6 pretty much was not in tune with the rest of the series. However, the first 3 episodes were very good. The girls escaping the dollhouse was amazing. The other episode, the 2 after that, the girls dealing with the PTSD of being tortured, it's very, very realistic and heart-wrenching. And it seems to me as though the episode 6-3 was the last good episode. There were moments in the other episodes that were amazing. Obviously, the moms hanging out together was amazing. Several different things that were very good, but just the plot, the core plot coming through was not as good after that. So anyway, however, the finale altogether was almost nothing about this finale was anything like the rest of the series. So they go in the room, and the holograph is a video of Allison, live feed of Allison in the Radley with Charles, and Charles turns around and it's Cece Drake, which is appalling. I could not believe my eyes. I was appalled. I didn't know what to do with myself. I don't know how to just, it was like, this cannot be happening. This is not real. This cannot be happening. You know, that sort of feeling. This is some sort of joke or last minute red herring to throw us off one last time. And I thought Ren would come in any minute to reveal that he was the real Charles or something. But I unfortunately was wrong about that. I told my friend Samantha, I was like, wait, see what happens before we react. This could be some sort of thing that we are not getting the whole story yet, which still to this day could be true. I'm hoping for some sort of explanation or some sort of backtracking on Marlene's part, even though I hate backtracking. She's done it several times. I'm very disappointed in that, in any sort of writing. If you write something meaningful or interesting or surprising and people get mad about it, then you backtrack. I got interrupted, so I have to continue now. Backtrack. I was talking about backtracking in writing. Oh, I don't like it because the story's interesting, everything's going great, and then some of the audience is upset about it for some reason or another. Mostly to do with the couples not being able to be together after a reveal or something. Marlene has backtracked on Toby and Ezra. It's very disappointing. Anyway, at this point, she has backtracked enough that I'm hoping that this will be, because of the terrible reaction to this episode, she will also backtrack and sort of say that Stacey was lying. The other backtracking times they weren't necessary within the writing. Toby could have been because even if he were a gentle victim in the whole situation, that would have just been his motive for being or helping Mona. So there were no plot holes in that, no character holes. He actually, even being a good guy, he could have still wanted to be part of the A-team. Not necessarily being a bad guy, but getting revenge on the terrible things that happened to him, or pointing out information about his mother, anything of that sort. She did not have to backtrack on Toby within the story. There was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't a plot hole. Ezra being then her backtracking to say he's writing a story, very terrible. Made no sense whatsoever that he would be spying on the girls with all his spy equipment, cameras all over town. Writers don't do that, I promise. I'm a writer, I promise I'm not spying on you. If there are parts of a true story I'm writing that I don't have the information on, I use my imagination, as do most artists. Certainly they would interview people or ask questions, but they would not go too far to spy on people with spy equipment or hidden cameras or anything stalkerish. So Ezra's backtrack made no sense. People were upset that Ezra was because they wanted him and Arya to be together. Marlene backtracked within a few episodes. The whole which would have been amazing had they left it alone. Spencer and Ezra's interaction and chemistry in those episodes was amazing. Very interesting. With her and him kind of going toe to toe as brilliant minds. Him being more emotional and a writer, and her being really analytical and just a genius. Her understanding literature, him just writing it, she understands it better than him still, and she outsmarted Ezra in some ways. It was very interesting. Troyan and Ian Harding, chemistry there was fabulous. Him talking to Mona, they had very good chemistry. Everything was we had up to that point only seen small instances of Ezra with other characters, and seeing him in this element as a dark character, interacting with Mona as a villain, himself as a villain, and sort of combating with Spencer as her trying to figure out what his deal is, and catching him at the Heart and the Huntsman. It was amazing. Ian got to show a different side of himself and his acting ability, but Marlene backtracked. So I am hoping for another backtrack. Even though I don't like them, there's so many plot holes and it ruins the story so much that a backtrack would be the only thing to save the whole entire series, in my opinion. Saying that Charles, the real Charles, being Ren or whoever, someone better than Cece. I can't think of another character that actually makes sense. I'm pause again. So apparently, what was that? Oh, Charles would have to be some other character besides Cece. Cece dated her brother. Charles is Jason's brother. Cece dated Jason. She claims she didn't do anything with him, but he was attracted to her, which is disturbing. She even mentions him being attracted to her. This is very, very disturbing, having this incest situation. Some fans have defended the show. Very few. I saw someone criticizing the show's incest, and another fan, obviously who was happy with the finale, said, "What have you got against incest?" Which is ridiculous, obviously. Some people are actually being swayed into thinking that it's normal because of this, or wanting at least to deny that it's disturbing or something. So obviously that rules out Ezra for being Charles. If we're keeping with the Charles storyline, Ezra could not be Charles because of his relationship with Allison. They kissed. Noel couldn't be Charles because he's too young. Really the only person of the age and having no relations to Allison or Jason, which I didn't know was going to be a problem. The only character male that of that age would be Ren. I haven't. There's almost no character that wouldn't leave plot holes somewhere. However, because Marlene proverbially painted herself into a corner with that, she painted herself into a corner to where no matter who was there would still be at least a couple of problems. There is literally not one character that would not have issues being Charles. But Ren had possibly one or two. That's the most. He's a doctor, obviously. A mental patient can't be a doctor. He couldn't have went to medical school, being in Radley so long. However, Charles obviously could fake IDs and pretend to be someone else. So he obviously could fake a medical license of some sort, or degree, or whatever was necessary. He could pretend that he had that medical license. So that could be explained fairly easily. I can't really think of another problem. A lot of people were upset or in denial or against Ren is Charles' theory because of Spencer and Melissa which was very upsetting to me that people don't understand genetics. Spencer and Melissa are in no way related to Charles or Allison. They are Jason's half-brother and sister. Jason is Allison and Charles' half-brother. So, Charles and Melissa and Spencer are not related to each other. Melissa and Spencer are not related to Allison in any way. They do not share any parents with each other. Jason and Allie and Charles have the same mother. Jason and Spencer and Melissa have the same father. Charles and Allison are full brother and sister. Their parents are Kenneth and Jessica. So, 90% of the people against the Ren A theory thought it was disgusting for incest with him, and whereas Ren and Spencer hooked up and Ren and Melissa were engaged. But actually that would not be incest. It would be weird, seeing as he was sort of in a roundabout way connected to their family, but not actually related by blood whatsoever. So that would actually not be incest. They did not grow up together either, so there's no incest or incest-like tendencies there. So that's the only character that makes sense. Hopefully they'll be backtracking and Marlene will say Ren is the real Charles, and he forced Cece to lie for him or pretend that she was Charles to throw the girls and Allison off his tracks. He lays low for 5 years because in the rest of the series it's a 5-year time jump. They're going to be 5 years older after college. A has not bothered them for 5 years. Then there's a male person after Allison again. Apparently Charlotte, Cece, is dead at this point, or at some point in the future she's going to be murdered. I've heard, I'm not sure. I listened to my other recording and I said that Charles was buried in his great-grandmother's backyard. Actually it was his great-aunt. Can't remember her name right now. But it was not his grandmother, it was his aunt. So, he was buried there. Well, not really, actually, it was a fake grave, but very confusing show, honestly. I kind of have a time keeping up with everything or remembering things. Pretty amazed at myself sometimes that I remember stuff, but I got the information a little bit at a time, so it's not as hard to keep up with. Anyway, in the episode finale, let's continue on with the recap. So, they see it's Cece. I'm very disappointed, blah blah blah. Cece mentions she dated Jason. She says she just wanted to reconnect with her family, which is the most appalling thing I could have ever heard. Says she loved her mother loved her. That her mother was the only one that visited her. She loved Allison. Cece knew Allie was alive since the night she went missing. We were led to believe that Cece knew pretty much the whole time, which would have made sense if Cece and Allison had lured Bethany to Rosewood together. They planned lots of things together. Cece taught Allison how to plan these things and get revenge on people. It would make sense. Bethany was wearing Allison's bracelet on her arm. That's when they found her. They found that and thought it was her. She was wearing Allison's same top. It looked very planned that someone lured Bethany there and pretended as though she was Allison on purpose to did not look like an accident, that she looked like Allison and her top and her bracelet, obviously. my thinking was that Alison and Cece together lured Bethany to Rosewood and set her up to be murdered or buried in her place so that Alison could fake her death. That all would have made very much more sense to me. But we know Cece at some point found out Alison was alive. Spent time with her while she was missing, while everyone thought she was dead. Even before the girls actually found out Alison was dead. Not dead. Even before the girls found out Alison was not dead, Cece knew she wasn't. So, in her explanation, she says she was just trying to find out if Alison was alive, which is obviously a plot hole. I'm sure. I don't need to go into the whole Marion Kavanaugh murder thing. That was obviously a huge plot hole, but the worst plot hole I've ever seen. Charles was 12 when Marion got pushed off the roof, except that Marion did not die until 2007. We found out in the first secret episode Toby had said his mother had been dead a year. They put a piece of writing at the beginning of the episode said it was 2008, and Toby later said his mother died a year prior, so Marion died in 2007. We are currently in 2012 with Pretty Little Liars in their world. And Cece is 26 to 28 at this time. In her late 20s, mid to late 20s. So she's obviously 7 years older, or 10 years older than the girls. Much older than them. At least 5 to 10 years older than them. Therefore, it's impossible that Marion died when Cece was 12, Charles, whatever. It's impossible. Clearly, not only because of the flashback with Toby and Alison being teenagers and Marion coming into the room, but also we actually get dialogue of Toby telling us that Marion died in 2007. Cece would have been 21 at that time, not 12. Maybe she got the numbers backwards and she's dyslexic, I don't know, but that's not possible. Also, she claims that her mother faked her suicide at age 16, got her out of Radley, then sent her back as Charlotte because she wanted to be a girl. Which we know doesn't line up with any other things that we heard, because Leslie had told us that Mona told the girls that Leslie said Charles escaped Radley. She didn't see him, she heard his name. He escaped Radley the night Alison went missing. Which also is a plot hole, because at that point, this character's name would have been Charlotte when they escaped. She would have heard that Charlotte escaped Radley that night, not Charles. That was a major plot hole from only 2 or 3 episodes prior to this reveal. You would think at least Molly would remember that piece of dialogue from 3 episodes beforehand. A major explanation for things. She should remember that Mona revealing Charles is alive. Marlene should have remembered that bit of information. That Leslie heard Charles' name and that he escaped and his name was Charles. Yet the explanation was that Charlotte was her name for several years prior to her escaping. Radley thought that, in her explanation, Radley thought that Charles was dead. Why would they look for an escaped patient named Charles if they thought he was dead since he was 16? Makes no sense. It's so upsetting that I'm talking almost American. So that's not cool. So she explains all this, and I don't remember where I left off, but it's just all very ridiculous. So Cece explains everything. All the main characters are in this Kerosene group high-tech room, standing there not doing anything. I got a very sore throat. So they don't have much dialogue or any involvement in the entire episode either. It's basically just Cece talking about her past and Allison reacting to her, and the girls reacting now and then. A little Easter egg there, Marlene wrote now and then. Anyway, the girls barely reacted, barely had any scenes with them. They just stood there and reacted. Allison just reacted. Allison was in the room with Cece. However, she just was there to react, ask a few questions. She looked appalled, as she should. The actors didn't even zoom into the story. They seemed very disappointed in their own show, even though they are great actresses. They didn't even want to support it. It didn't seem to me like Cece, however, did a great job. Vanessa Ray as Cece was amazing. Obviously, in her acting and portraying this character, although it was terrible, her acting was amazing. It made me cry, actually. I did not feel sorry for her. As a whole, I was devastated about the reveal and everything. It was an awful episode. However, her crying about her mother was, she was just so good at portraying that it was very sad. Although that didn't make sense either. Several plot holes. So, the girls finally escape the room. Mona obviously saves the day. She has a dagger in her shoe, in her heel, which is amazing. And obviously the coolest thing, and Spencer figures out how to get out, and Mona actually stabs the wall and it breaks because it's made of glass. And they escape. She stays there to finish the story, and because she's frightened, and also Mona killed Bethany, or hit her in the head, and Melissa buried her, and we knew Melissa buried her, but Mona is revealed to be the one to have hit her, which absolutely does not make sense. It's not satisfying of an answer at all. Plus, she knew Allison was alive since the night she went missing, and she's a genius. She would have known from the minute she would have known, had they found a body, that it would be someone other than Allison. She knew that already. She knew it. She should have. She found Allison walking along the road. The very night Allison went missing, Mona sent her off to fake her own death. Therefore, the minute they found a body they thought was Allison, Mona would have realized, I did that. She would not have waited until this far along to realize that. Even a person with any sort of sense whatsoever would have known, and she's a genius, and that doesn't make any sense. So, that's a huge mistake. Also, the scenes with Spencer in the blood, remembering hitting someone with a shovel, her being covered in blood in the dollhouse. One would think Charles knew Bethany and was trying to get revenge for her death. That would have made lots of sense. But no, we didn't get that satisfying of answers, or explanations. So then the girls find Redcoat and Radley trying to set up a bomb, and it turns out to be Sarah, and Emily punches her in the face, which is the most satisfying thing about this episode. Even Shay Mitchell was very glad she got to do that, because she doesn't like Sarah's character either, and she punched her so hard she ended up in the hospital, which was amazing. that was the moment, the only satisfying moment in the entire episode. Emily punched her right in the face. Then Spencer, of course, defuses the bomb because she's Spencer, and of course she did. And Charlotte runs up to the roof to jump off, and for some reason the girls don't want that to happen. And Allison's begging her not to jump, and the girls, even Hannah, is like, no, don't jump. Hannah, the girl that never felt sympathy for this character, is now suddenly sorry for her and sympathetic. Don't know why. Nothing about her story made me feel sorry for her. Sort of, but not like. Obviously, you don't want someone to jump off a roof. Even regardless, I'm sure these girls wouldn't have wanted that. Because they don't ever want anyone to get hurt, even the people that don't like them. All the people that hate them and torture them, they don't want them to get hurt or die or anything like that. They want them to go to jail. That's it. Although Hannah never seemed to even care about this. She seemed to always just... She acted as though she didn't mind if the police killed Charles. Suddenly, because of Stacey, or whatever reason, the whole sexual controversy issue, we're supposed to think that that's the worst thing that could possibly happen to someone, that they be that way. That people judge them for that. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen, and it excuses all things. That is not true. You cannot trick your brother into dating you. You cannot kidnap 5 girls and lock them in a dollhouse in a bunker underground and torture them. You cannot kill your sister or think you did. You cannot put a baby in boiling hot water over her head. That transgender does not excuse any of this behavior. I don't know if Marlene thought that storyline or that aspect of the character would excuse all that, but it certainly does not. Actually, it sheds a terrible light on that. Not that I care, but she's not pleasing either side of this argument with this revealing that Charles is transgender. Charlotte is upsetting to the people that are against transgender, but it's also upsetting to people that are for it. So she has no side with this on her side. I personally don't agree with that sort of behavior. However, I don't think they deserve to die or anything of that sort, or get bullied, or anyone be mean to them. However, I don't want that to be made out to be something that means that everything you do is excusable because you had that problem or issue. That doesn't excuse the behavior of this character. And like most people that are very annoying or stuck in this liberal world of thinking, Marlene has chosen to put this issue on this character and make it a part of their character. So now that anyone that criticizes the episode for any reason, she calls it transphobe. Which was her plan probably all along. She painted herself into a corner and couldn't figure out what to do. The only character that made sense was Ren, but Marlene figured it was not surprising enough. Honestly, no character would be surprising, so her best bet would have been to at least have it be satisfying and make sense, which would have been Ren. She went for wanting it to be more shocking than actually making sense. So her only way out of being criticized was to make it a social controversial issue, to where if anyone disagreed with her choice, she could accuse of being transphobic. And that's exactly what she has done. That's very disturbing and very enraging. It's very I can't think of the word. It's just it's an outrage. It's terrible. She doesn't seem to realize that people that are like, whatever, they're like that, they are also offended, because the only person like that on the entire show is the villain that's crazy. And her being crazy is directly linked to her being transgender. So it's offensive to them, and that's not cool. I'm not for that lifestyle, but you can't have both ways. You can't have this character on there and say that you're for that and then make her out to be a villain. Either you're for or against it. You can't. She painted her very crazy, then tried to squeeze in last minute that she only did it out of love and she's not crazy. And that doesn't make sense. Then none of it makes sense. It's just very, very awful. So that is my reaction to the show. Oh, Cece did not jump off the roof. Apparently because Allison called her Charlotte, which is so stupid. She wanted Allison to treat her like a girl, which is crazy, because the whole time Allison knew Cece, she thought she was a girl. She never treated her as a boy. So that really makes no sense. So it's really quite ridiculous, and she was trying to do something. She tried to jump on the bandwagon last minute. She wanted to be in with that whole crowd that did all that she wanted to jump on the bandwagon, basically, and it's just not. It was too far along to make it make sense. She messed up. She won't admit it. She won't admit that she created a terrible episode. She thinks it's brilliant. Anyone that disagrees is being mean. The haters, she calls us haters if we disagree, which is something that 16-year-old girls say, and rappers, anyone in the hip-hop world, or teenagers call anyone that dislikes what they do a hater. Which I agree, there are some people that are, haters or whatever. They act out of jealousy or whatever, but this is not the same. People not liking your work, honestly, for the very fact that it's not good work, is not being a hater. That's being a critic, that's being honest, it's being an observer, it's being a fan, it's being a viewer. Any description other than hater. You can't call people that dislike what you make a hater unless they actually like it, but they're jealous of you. Which is absolutely not the case. She's obviously out of her mind if she thinks that any criticism is fans being a hater. That's not what a hater is. It's not the same. So that's my little rant that's lasted for almost an hour. So sorry about that, and see you later.